So since Chrystia Freeland has announced her name in the election process for picking the new leader of the Liberal Party and potentially the short-term Prime Minister of Canada, I just like to remind people some of the greatest notions from her leadership that should make her disqualified for any potential run to being a prime minister and responsible for this nation. So take note, for example, obviously people are aware of this, but I just want to re-highlight this, that it was her and Justin Trudeau in cooperation with big bank institutions to freeze and lock down anti-mandate protesters' bank accounts. And not only the people that took part in the Freedom Convoy, the peaceful demonstrators, but also anyone that contributed through GoFundMe, through any campaign contributions to the truckers. They had their bank accounts frozen. And because of those situations, because of what they did there, they have now expanded that. They're now trying to expand that and digitize it so now they can get more control of bank accounts, regardless of if you're part of the convoy or not. And Chrystia Freeland notoriously was responsible for it. She was the core principal person that implemented that. And here's her giggling at it when a journalist questioned her about the freezing of bank accounts. Listen to this.
So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay, so the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen. Crowdfunding platforms and payment service providers have started the registration process with FinTrack.
So she's saying that anyone that partaked in the Freedom Convoy, anyone that contributed through GoFundMe, anyone with any intention of participating with the Freedom Convoy, with the truckers, with Tamara Leach, with any of those individuals, Chris Barber, any of the people within the Freedom Convoy, are subjugated to have their information sent to the RCMP so they can crack down your bank accounts. Crack down your financial assets. Meaning that you cannot feed your families, you can't buy clothes, you can't buy gasoline, you have no access to your own personal bank accounts. Because Chrystia Freeland put herself in an authoritarian position to seize control of your financial stability. And she's giggling at it. You saw at the beginning, she's giggling. Look at this.
So
she's
you're
giggling.
confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay.
And they imposed the Emergencies Act. The Emergencies Act, which hasn't been used since wartime in Canada. The last prime minister to do that, invoke the Emergencies Powers Act, was during an act of war. So, Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau basically put war on Canadians. Went to war on working class Canadians that once upon a time, at the start of the pandemic, referred to them as heroes, referred to them as great individuals. Justin Trudeau personally thanked the truckers. While the world was shut down, they're the ones that are bringing clothing to stores and food to the grocery stores and shipping and mailing everything as we're being locked and trapped in our homes. They're the essential workers. We need to thank them. And now they're at war with them, invoking this Emergency Powers Act that is unconstitutionally, unlawful, unethical against Canadians. And she's giggling about it.
So the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen.
And more accounts will be frozen. Mean that because of what they're doing here, that technology, that intelligence, that ability, that power structure within the parliament can be used elsewhere. That's what's happening right now. That's why they want to digitize everything and put everything into a digital ID. They want a CBDC so they could seize control of your financial stability. So here is Tamara Lich, a proud organizer of the Freedom Convoy, who had to go through court, had to go through the trials of hell, was deemed this, racist, bigot, anti-Canadian, anti-whatever, just thrown every direction of Sunday, through the media and through the Canadian lexicon. Here she is, stating on X here that she's going to highlight, and this was part of the trial, she's going to highlight the handwritten notes that Chrystia Freeland wrote down in regards to the truckers, in regards to the Freedom Convoy, and her actions in resulting to freezing their bank accounts. So she states, I have a lot of evidence from the POEC, but this morning I'm going to share with you the very poorly handwritten notes from Prime Minister wannabe Chrystia Freeland. This should provide some insight as to how she really feels about everyday hardworking Canadians who just want to feed their families. So I can't really make it out here, but it says it looks like Brian, since 2008, Canada's finance regulators stacked something to 6 banks. I think that's her saying that they collaborate with the 6 huge bank institutions like TD, CIBC, Scotiabank, BMO, RBC, the big huge banks, conglomerates. There was to be a new definition of primary, and we need to share more information. We will in every talk about horrible handwriting. And this is supposed to be someone that's going to lead the country. I mean, this is why. This is why we need to bring back handwriting in schools. No offense. So it even says here, this is official ledger from the House of Commons. Look at that. Look at that. That's official letterhead from the House of Commons here. And it says, give the banks a 1.3 million of mischief makers. So that is in regards to the protesters, that we need to get the information from the banks of those people to do what? To freeze their bank accounts. So luckily Tamara Lich wrote out some of these handwritten notes, because obviously it's ineligible to understand what she exactly says here. But Tamara Lich says in this note here, we do not want eligible convoy pointing their guns at the bank. Seems a bit dramatic to me, but okay. Use military at the borders. So that's when they deployed the military to the Niagara crossing, the Rainbow Bridge, and also the Ambassador Bridge, because they blocked those two in defiance against the mandates. Which that was the big crossing the line. That was when you knew shit was hitting the fan. That's when you know the government was definitely going to go after Canadians because anything that interrupts trade, especially billions and billions of dollars of businesses that travel back and forth between the borders, holy crap, there is going to be hell to pay. And that's what they did. We need to think about vaccine mandate. Is there a number in mind? So she's saying how many people do we need to mandate? How big this mandate has to be? She's saying that to, I think it was the representative of or maybe it was Theresa Tam. Doesn't really say there. You need to designate this group as a terrorist group. The truckers. To which you just said before the pandemic that they were respectful, honest, hardworking people at the start of the pandemic. They were essential workers, bringing the goods to people. And then all of a sudden, when people started to wake up and realize the mandates weren't exactly helpful in the situation, that's when the authoritarian came out in the Liberal caucus, in the parliamentarian, and they pounced on ordinary Canadians and need to designate them as a terrorist group. Ordinary working Canadians as a terrorist group for standing up in defiance against medical tyranny. So you need to designate this group as a terrorist group and seize their assets as illegible them. So make it impossible for this terrorist group to put food on the table for the family. Yeah, freeze their bank accounts, meaning they don't have any access to money whatsoever. That if you don't comply with the authoritarian measures, with these horrific mandates, you'll be shucked out of luck of your own finances. So another Freeland note says, of course they want to change the crowdfunding rules to decide what Canadians can raise money for and what they can't. So that's GoFundMe now caving towards the Canadian government, saying, hey, you can't make crowdfunding for things like protests. You can't make crowdfunding sites and campaigns for going against the government. So that's GoFundMe caving to the Canadian government because the Canadian government put measures on them, put pressure on them to change their regulations. Here's more to this. I feel we are able to do this so quickly. Unconstitutionally, unlawfully freezing bank accounts is not something to be proud of. But yet she laughed. She laughed when a reporter asked her about, are you going to freeze more bank accounts? She laughed at that. Oh, yeah. We're going to go after people using GiveSendGo, GoFundMe, cryptocurrency. That's a thing. We're just going to seize anyone's bank accounts that stands in our way. She laughed at that. Look how proud she is. This account freeze initiative actually was successful. Parents couldn't buy medication for their kids. People couldn't pay for their mortgages, make their payments, or pay their child support. People had to return their groceries when they arrived at the till and discovered they had no access to their own money after donating $10 to a cause they support. And then something about the Ukrainian labor force. So you can see which side she's definitely on. Definitely a defiant force, not for Canadians, not for working class people, but she'll definitely support NATO. She'll definitely support actions to militarize overseas. She'll definitely support ideals that globalizes, make us a post-national state, and impose horrific mandates and tyranny against Canadians. That's what you're going to get with Chrystia Freeland. And ironically, her name is Freeland, coming from Peace River, where she's the exact opposite. She doesn't give you freedom, and she doesn't provide peace. She's a warmonger. She is definitely a war goon, warmonger that laughs about this. So, just how horrific it all is. And the crowd of people chanting her name, there was people protesting at that rally. The Palestine supporters and the people that want a ceasefire were screaming at her, and she just completely turned the other way, completely ignored them, and got the police over there to escort them out, get them riled up, and throw them out of the rally, out of the arena. And people were chanting Freeland on top of the protesters to silence them out. Like, just talk about how gross a situation is. And you got that on top of Mark Carney, another individual who's pretty much a similar situation as Chrystia Freeland, trying to take position of potential prime minister. Just know exactly who you're voting for, do the research, understand who these people are, and, it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. Her past mistakes really highlight the kind of person Chrystia Freeland is. And she's not just a simple girl from Peace River, Alberta. She's a nefarious tyrant brought to you by the nefarious ghouls at institutions like the WEF. Which, ironically, that's where Trudeau met Chrystia Freeland. So it all worked out on their behalf.